watching The End Zone, sponsored by Lucky Star Casino.
Welcome to another edition of The End Zone, along with TJ Eckert. I am Colby Daniels. TJ, we are halfway through one of the best four-day stretches in all of sports. And if you want to break it down even further, we're wrapping up arguably the two best days in all of sports, which is the first round of the NCAA tournament, and it's been a lot of fun.
It's been good, and I don't know, we were comparing our brackets earlier. I don't know if it's time to shred yet. We're not there quite. I think most of our teams are still left, but like I'm getting beat by everybody at Channel 8, like that, and my family's beating me too. So it's early. We got plenty of time. Not going to panic, but just goes to show that maybe anybody can do our job. I don't know if that's the case or not.
I definitely am guilty of going too heavy on the upsets in the first round, and my office pool standings have me near the bottom, so that's probably my issue.
Yeah.
And I'm guilty of maybe going too chalk at the end because I had all four number ones making the Final Four, just like Jay Billis did, who got absolutely roasted on social media this week for doing that.
He did, and we talked about this a little before we started. I felt like there was a pretty clear separation between top four, maybe even the top six teams in the country, compared to the rest of the field. And I don't like doing the chalky thing either, but as you sit back and you look, it's like, man, I just don't know if this team can get right. Like, who's going to beat Auburn?
Right.
Who's going to beat Duke if Cooper flags? So I did not like picking all four number one seeds, but I couldn't find a way to squeeze one in there just for the sake of doing it. Like, I was like, am I really going to ruin a bracket just to say, well, I don't want all four number one seeds. I couldn't do it, so I kept them all in there.
I don't like Duke. I don't want to see Duke win any games in this tournament, but I'm not going to have them losing in the first or second round just because I don't like them. So the goal in filling out a bracket, I guess, is to pick who you actually think is going to win as opposed to who you want to win. So, I think there's a pretty big separation, at least in my mind, from the top elite teams in the country, which I'm with you. I think there are six. I think it's the four number one seeds and then Tennessee and Alabama, who were two seeds. I kind of felt like we're in that same group. And to me, this was just a year where there was major separation from the top.
I know a lot of people were debating on social media, at least day one, is this the worst day one we've had ever? And, in terms of like dramatic games, we kind of lacked in them.
Right.
Drake, I thought, handled Missouri. That was an upset. And so, and then McNeese handled Clemson, which was also a seed line upset. So, like, those still happened, but they weren't the ones where, like, a guy's hitting a half-court shot at the buzzer. We didn't really have any of that. And so I don't know if you fall in line with that. Like, this is a terrible day of basketball. I enjoyed it still, but it was a fairly chalky day.
It wasn't as competitive, like edge-of-your-seat thrillers as maybe you normally get. I'm glad we had a couple Cinderellas, right? That's part of the unique charm of the NCAA tournament is to have a Cinderella that nobody's ever heard of or maybe nobody knows where they're from to make a run like that. For me, it's about buzzer beaters. Those, to me, are the best moments of the NCAA tournament. Somebody drops a shot, the horn sounds, and the whole place goes crazy. There's a dog pile. Like, that, to me, is peak March Madness, and we didn't get that on the first day, right? So I think that's probably where some of that criticism comes from.
I think so. Was it the year that it was in Oklahoma City? The Northern Iowa had the buzzer beater with the half-court shot against Texas.
Was that Ali Faroukmanesh?
Faroukmanesh, maybe, yeah. And then I think maybe even the night before that, I think there was a buzzer beater the night before there as well. I can't remember, the years are running together, but
Bryce Drew's buzzer beater happened in Oklahoma City.
Yeah, so it's like maybe just bring it back to the Paycom.
That's right.
And if you want drama, bring it back to the Paycom or bring it to Oklahoma. I know the BOK Center hosted back about 5-6 years ago now, and Texas Tech went on a run out of Tulsa, and I think they made the national championship that year. So, bring it to Oklahoma. Maybe we can give you some drama there. I don't know.
Are you a bracket above all else guy, or like will you let your personal rooting interest overtake your bracket rooting interest, or will you let just the sake of seeing a Cinderella win or seeing a buzzer beater overtake your bracket interest?
So, like, in terms of filling out a bracket, I try my best to put all that aside and just fill out who I think is going to win.
Right.
Like, I may put some local teams to win a game.
But as you're watching games play out.
I would rather my bracket do well. But, like, if a 15 seed, so like St. Peter's when they won, like, it ruined everybody's bracket. So I was like, at this point, I might as well just root for them. Right? Or like UMBC when they beat Virginia. Like, that ruined a lot of people's brackets. Okay, great. Now let's root for them, right? So I think early on I'm like, man, I want my bracket to be really good. But then if there's a really bad bracket buster, I'm like, okay, fine, I'm all in on them now. Why
See,
not?
I'm the flip. Early rounds, I'm all for whatever I think will be the most fun. And later in the bracket is when I want to get them right, and I
Sure.
start rooting for what I have in my bracket. But in the early rounds, like earlier today, Baylor was playing Mississippi State. Mississippi State had a chance to shoot a 3 at the end.
Yeah.
I have Baylor winning the game, but I was hoping they would hit the 3.
That makes sense.
Just to give us some thrilling action. But later in the bracket, I definitely start going for my bracket as opposed to that way of thinking.
Yeah.
We did have a scare with Alabama earlier today.
Yeah.
Robert Morris really gave them everything they wanted. They had a lead late in the game. Do you know where Robert Morris is from?
We were talking about this, and you wouldn't let me look it up, and I wasn't going to. It sounds like a Northeast school, and you confirmed that it was. My guess would be like Virginia. Is it in Virginia?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania? Okay.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I'm good at mascots. We talked about that. I'm really good at mascots. They're the Colonials. I knew that. But their location, where's it at in Pennsylvania? Is it Philadelphia?
I don't remember.
Okay, yeah, I don't know.
I just know it's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
How about High Point?
North Carolina, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
I don't know if I looked that one up or if I just kind of knew it. But yeah, High Point.
What about Lipscomb?
I don't know that one. Georgia. Are they in Atlanta?
Tennessee.
Okay.
Close.
Okay.
But Tennessee. I always like to go through and look up where some of these places are from because I had no idea before today, and I've probably looked it up in the past, but it just didn't stick with like Lipscomb from Tennessee.
Right.
But that's like one of my traditions.
Yeah.
I think with the NCAA tournament. All right, let's take a timeout. We got to talk Thunder basketball. They've clinched the West with 13 games to play. That's coming up next here on the End Zone. Along with TJ Eckert, I am Colby Daniels. TJ, despite not playing basically the majority of their starters earlier this week, the Oklahoma City Thunder clinched the Western Conference with a win and a Lakers loss, I think, the next night to win the West with 13 games to play going into Friday. So this is a Thunder team that really has it going, and you look at how well they play even when Shea and J-Dub, the two All-Stars aren't in the lineup, and how I think some of these role players show their talent when they're not relying on Shea and J-Dub to that degree. This is a team that I think just continues to wow us in different ways as the season goes on.
Jalen Williams had his first triple-double a couple weeks ago, and it was like he was scraping to get there, right? Like they were trying to get him some boards, maybe an assist, and a terrific stat line for his triple-double against the Sixers earlier this week. So, yeah, to your point, the role players really stepping up when the main guys aren't out. I'll be curious to see if there's an investigation into the main guys sitting out like there was this last game. It's a couple weeks ago now, right, that they sat and then got investigated. But it's crazy, man. And the fact that they've clinched so early, I've kind of talked about it. What is there to play for at this point now, right? Like, is it to get to 60 wins? Is it to get to the franchise record, which when the Sonics were involved was, I think, 64, 63, somewhere in there? What else is there? Are we just going to see these guys kind of get some rest until the playoffs begin? I don't know. It's wild that we're even discussing that topic because they've just played so well.
With 13 games to play.
Exactly, this early in the regular season.
You could literally just cash it in with 13 games to play if you wanted to, and you don't lose anything. Now, I don't know how much excitement there is within the organization about trying to set like the single season win total or break a record like that. I think those are sort of things that if they happen, great.
Yes.
They're more focused on winning the West, which they've done. There is a fine balance now, though, of I think not losing your momentum and allowing guys to rest, right?
Yeah.
Like you want to have everybody as close to 100% when the playoffs start as you can, but you also don't want to develop some rust and you don't want to lose some of the chemistry that this team has played with for basically the majority of the year.
I think that the argument that Mark Daigneault can make specifically for SGA is he hasn't played a lot of fourth quarters already.
Right.
So it's like if you want to keep that consistent, you probably could because he hasn't gotten to play all four quarters in a good chunk of games already. So you could still get him reps, maybe play him for a half if you wanted to, and then let him rest. Same thing with some of the other key players. Chet would be one to monitor just because he's still coming off the injury and don't want to overwork him. But yeah, it's a luxury. We're acting like it's a problem to be having this discussion. It's a luxury to be discussing that as teams are really scraping and clawing for playoff seeding. Oklahoma City can just sit back and enjoy the last couple weeks of the season.
Well, and like earlier this week, you rest your starters, but it gives you an opportunity to play Aaron Wiggins, who is deserving of more playing time.
100%.
And on a lot of other teams is probably the number one scorer, right? If he plays for non-playoff teams,
sure,
he's probably a guy that's averaging 20-something points a game and probably a lot more highly thought of than a guy coming off the bench in Oklahoma City. Jalen Williams, without the starters in there, has done nothing but look like Russell Westbrook in a Thunder uniform, producing triple-doubles. So it does allow those guys to maybe stretch their wings a little bit, but it also, I think, allows you to maybe play with your rotations a little bit more down the final stretch and see what you like, what you don't like. And Mark Daigneault has done that anyway this season, but it just gives him, I think, more flexibility.
It does that, and maybe another conversation we can have another day, but what it's also doing, like a guy like Jalen Williams, a guy like Aaron Wiggins, maybe even Isaiah Joe to some extent, if you can't keep everybody. At some point, all these guys are going to need to get paid. So what it's doing in a weird way is it's upping their trade value.
Creating value.
Yeah, so
that's right.
It's not something we need to focus on right now because we're talking about them having a great roster and a push for an NBA Finals. But down the line, I mean, it's only setting up great for Sam Presti to be able to have those pieces to move around if he wants to. Maybe they can find a way to make them all work. I doubt it. So this is also just another element there that you can plug in.
They've been so far ahead of everybody else in the West that I think generally when you hear the national media talking about the Thunder, it's more about Shea and the MVP than the actual Thunder because they've surpassed everybody in the West. There's still a pretty big argument going on between Shea and Jokic. I know that we, for a while, have been very firmly on the side of SGA. I know Jokic is doing great things. I would say the fact that Shea's the best player on a team that has completely dominated the West, and one thing that's overlooked is how good he is on defense. I know Jokic is doing ridiculous things offensively, not just with scoring, but rebounds and assists. Shea, I think, dwarfs Jokic's production in just the way that he defends on a team that has great defenders.
It's an argument that is it the most valuable player, in essence, the most valuable player on that team, or is it just the best player on the best team? Similar to the argument for the Heisman, right? And so, like Jokic, you take Jokic off the Nuggets, I don't think they're anything, right? You take Shea off the Thunder, I think they're worse, obviously, but they still have the pieces to be a pretty good team. So, like, if that's your argument and you want to say that that's what the award means, then it probably goes to Jokic. I think we've talked about this too. Voter fatigue probably becoming a thing.
It's absolutely a thing.
We have Shea has never won one before. Jokic has what? Three? How many?
Yeah, three.
So maybe they're getting tired of him winning. I don't know.
That LeBron doesn't have 7. Jordan doesn't have 8 for a reason, right? Voter fatigue is a real element, and I think that also contributes to why Shea's odds continue to go up. All right, we've got to take a timeout. It is Smash or Punt on the other side of the break. Along with TJ Eckert, I'm Colby Daniels. This is The End Zone. All right, welcome to this week's edition of Smash or Punt. I'll make a statement. If you agree with it, you smash. If you disagree with it, you are punting it away. Very simple concept.
Makes sense.
And we'll start with some NCAA tournament action. I know a lot of people have gone chalk, as we discussed earlier in the show. So smash or punt, 3 number 1 seeds or more will make the Final Four.
So 3 or more.
3 or more.
Smash.
Smash?
Yeah, because we need our bracket to be good. So smash. Because I do think there is a clear separation between, you mentioned 6. I think it's very clear the top 4, the number 1 seeds have been the number 1 teams in the country pretty much all year long. So 3 of them feels pretty doable. 4 feels close to possible. So I'll smash that for sure.
Give me the smash as well.
I
think the elite teams in college basketball this year are the elite teams.
Yeah.
And that means number 1 seeds are looking good, despite, we'll see. This opening weekend can provide some tricky stuff.
I agree.
All right, the SEC set a record, 14 teams into the NCAA tournament. Smash or punt, 2 SEC teams make the Final Four, which I think based on your first response would be another smash.
Smash, yeah. So at Auburn and Florida, right? Yeah. So those would be the 2 I think. And then you said you deleted your bracket initially, but you had all 4 as SEC
So I do
initially.
a first response, as soon as it's announced, I just, without thinking, look at matchups and write down matchups. And my initial had 4 SEC teams in the Final Four, and I was like, I can't do that. That's not going to happen. But that's the way it went, and that's just because I think the SEC at the top has been really, really good.
Yeah. So I smash, and you're
smash.
Yeah.
Double smash.
I think it's got to be
on SEC teams in the Final Four.
Yeah.
All right, sticking with college basketball.
Yep.
Bill Self, coach of Kansas, they exit in the first round this year. First time in 17 years, I think? 16, 17 years?
Yeah.
Bill Self will not coach Kansas next year. Smash or punt?
I'm gonna. That's a good question. I'm gonna punt because I think he will coach. Is
Okay,
that right?
yeah, that's right.
Punt.
Yeah.
He will be back next year. ORU fired their head coach, and we asked the AD if they were going to hire Bill Self, and he said no. So Bill Self will not be at Oral Roberts. We know that. But I can't imagine him going anywhere else other than maybe Oklahoma State, but he's not going to go there with Steve Butts there. So I'll punt.
Well, some people say Kansas and Bill Self has maybe run out of time at making Kansas elite. They're 2 years removed from a national championship.
Yes.
Are the standards so high that you have one first-round exit and you forget about a national championship 2 years ago? Punt. Bill Self is absolutely back at Kansas, and I guess we'll be playing this clip if the opposite happens. All right. I know you love these Thunder questions. This 2025 edition of the Oklahoma City Thunder, I know we haven't seen what happens in the postseason yet, but this edition is the best team ever from OKC.
So I have been reluctant to do this, right, with the comparisons with Russ and Shea and some of the other things. I will smash this one.
Okay.
There's a couple elements that go with that, though. The best because they have a chance to be the best in terms of record. I think that's very possible, and they should do it. But in terms of just the team to watch and cover has been more fun than any team I think that we've had here in Oklahoma City. And so for all of those reasons, I'll say smash because it's not just a record thing. I think it's a personality thing.
Yeah.
This team loves playing together, too, and you see it every night. So smash.
Double smash again. We've been on the same side all the way,
that?
and I'm with you. Not only are they the most fun, I think, to watch, stylistically they're the most fun. They're by far the best defensive team that OKC has ever had.
Yeah.
I think you have stars, you have more depth than the Thunder have ever had. The depth to me is one of the separators, I think, not only from all Thunder teams, but from the entire NBA right now. That's one reason why I think their championship ceiling is so high.
Agreed.
And yeah, I mean, you just have a mix of, I think, everything you would want to put them over the top. I know there was a Thunder team that made the finals.
Yeah.
That was a very young Russ. He wasn't superhero Russ yet. Kevin was Kevin, I think, by that point. James Harden, wasn't even a star yet. So I think this Thunder team is the best team from OKC ever.
Hard to believe.
All right, final smasher punt. So Scotty Scheffler's Masters dinner menu was announced this week. Appetizers, he has the Scotty-style sliders, which are French fries on a slider. Okay. Firecracker shrimp. He has meatballs and ravioli bites. Texas-style chili. The main course, wood-fired cowboy ribeye or black and red fish. I mean, if you're going to pass up a ribeye.
Yeah, who are you?
The dessert, warm chocolate chip skillet cookie. Are you smashing or punting the Scotty Scheffler Masters menu?
So it's a double smash. One, because the menu's great. Two, because the meatball or the ravioli bites.
Yeah.
So that's good, but I also think that's how he got injured to start the year because he was in the kitchen making food. And I think that's how he cut himself. He was cutting a ravioli or meatball. I'll have to confirm that. So it's almost like a joke on himself that he put that on there. I like that, so I'll smash it there for sure.
Give me the triple smash here. I'm smashing the appetizers. I'm smashing the main course. Very underrated dessert is the skillet chocolate chip cookie with some vanilla bean ice cream.
Like a Pizookie at BJ's,
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree.
I am all in on that. Very underrated dessert. This would be a 10 if it didn't have soy glazed Brussels sprouts. Yeah. One of the sides, I mean, you take the Brussels sprouts off the menu, it's a 10.
It's like a 9.5.
Just because of the Brussels sprouts, I'll drop it to a 9.5, but it's very close to perfection.
It's a good job, Scotty. He's done it before, so he knows what to bring.
All right, that is it for this edition of Smash or Punt. On the same side of all five, that's TJ Eckert, I'm Colby Daniels. We're back to wrap things up with the spring game next. All right, for the final time, along with TJ Eckert, I am Colby Daniels. I know it's March Madness. I know we're right around the corner from the NBA playoffs. We got to sneak in some football talk, though, here on the End Zone. I know most people are shifting away from a traditional spring game. Colorado and Deion Sanders are no different, but they're not getting away with the spring game. They want to actually evolve it right into a spring scrimmage and play against an opponent, which I think is a brilliant idea. They're currently trying to work out a deal with Syracuse, where they would practice together for a week and have a scrimmage at the end of this thing.
Right.
This is the future. Not only is it a money-making giant, which everybody's preaching about trying to get more money into college football, but it's an opportunity to play a game, see what you have, and make your fans happy. You're asking more from your fan base. Imagine an OU-OSU Bedlam spring game matchup.
I think OU-UCO is a higher likelihood than OU.
Probably.
Hey, roll chills. But it makes a lot of sense on a lot of fronts. You mentioned the money. For kids, the players, it gives them something to kind of look forward to. The spring game is fun, but it's like I'm tired of beating my head against the same guys over and over. Fall camp gets that way too. So I love it. I think it's a great idea. The hesitation from coaches is going to be injuries. We've talked about this before. But you can get injured in spring practice just going against each other. So It's like, I think going against another team, like mentally, may be more difficult because like you want to go harder and harder and like want to beat the guy because he's not on your team. But I also think physically you may take off a little bit because you don't want to hurt each other. And so I think there would be less injuries in this format. That's a guess, but I think it'd be good. I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think there's just a competitive nature that you get out of playing somebody else that you're never going to be able to duplicate with playing against yourself or not having a spring game at all, which maybe just kind of squashes all of spring practice.
No,
but
I like it
I'm all in on it. I'm smashing spring games against an opponent as we wrap up this edition of The End Zone, and we are back next week.